Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Got an end to a story we covered a little while back, and that is about the Missouri woman who tried to steal Graceland, Elvis Presley's place. And she just got more than 4 years in prison for her efforts. Story sent me by Kevin Scott and the letter R and the letter G. Adrian Saines wrote this for the Associated Press. A woman from Missouri who tried to use a fake company and forged documents to sell off Elvis Presley's Graceland for millions of dollars in a brazen and unrealistic foreclosure sale of the home-turned-mansion was sentenced to more than 4 years in federal prison recently. A U.S. district judge wondered whether or not that plot could have even succeeded, but he sentenced her in federal court in Memphis to 4 years and 9 months behind bars, plus an additional 3 years of probation. She's 54 years old, and she did not speak on her own behalf during the sentencing. Now, she pleaded guilty in February, which makes you wonder why she didn't speak at her sentencing. A lot of times people won't speak at their sentencing because they're planning on an appeal, but if you pleaded guilty, then it's kind of like, So it was a charge of mail fraud for which she was pleading guilty. She also had been indicted on a charge of aggravated identity theft, but that was dropped as part of a plea agreement. She was from Kimberling City, and she claimed that Presley's daughter borrowed $3.8 million from a bogus private lender and had put up Graceland as collateral. And that was, of course, before she died in January of 2023. So that's what prosecutors described when they charged her last year. And then, of course, she threatened to sell Graceland at an auction if Presley's family didn't pay $2.85 million in a settlement that she offered to give them. So the question is, if there has been borrowed $3.8 million and a default on the loan, why are you willing to accept $2.85? But she posed as three different people, allegedly involved with a fake lender, fabricated loan documents, and a fraudulent foreclosure notice, which was published in a Memphis newspaper, which was announcing the proposed auction of Graceland in May of 2024. A judge stopped the sale after Presley's granddaughter stepped in and sued. Now, experts were baffled by the attempt to sell off one of the most famous pieces of real estate in the country using names, emails, and documents that were quickly revealed to be phony. And in case you didn't know this, Graceland served as Presley's home in Memphis before he died in August of 1977 at the age of 42. It opened as a museum and tourist attraction in 1982 and draws hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. And I've been there. A large Presley-themed entertainment complex across the street from the museum is owned by Elvis Presley Enterprises. The public notice of foreclosure sale of the estate said that a trust which controlled the museum owed $3.8 million from a 2018 loan. In case you're curious, the property is 13 acres. 13 acres. So Presley's granddaughter inherited the trust and ownership of the home after the death of her mother, Lisa Marie. So she filed a lawsuit claiming fraud, and the judge halted the proposed auction with an injunction. And the phony lender and the phony investment company said that Lisa Marie had used Graceland as collateral for the loan, according to the foreclosure sale notice. And what it looks like the woman was trying to do was trying to say, hey, look, she borrowed money before she died, and she's not here now, so she can't deny this. But it's not how things work. So it turns out that Lisa Marie had never borrowed any money from that company. And the notary, whose name was listed on the documents, indicated she never met Lisa Marie and never notarized any documents for her, according to the estate's lawsuit. The judge said the notary's affidavit brought into question the authenticity then of the signature. A statement emailed to the Associated Press after the judge stopped the sale said that the foreclosure was not going to proceed because key documents in the case and the loan were recorded and obtained in a different state, meaning legal action would not have been proper where it was filed. It would have to be filed in multiple states. But that was also something from an email address from one of the phony lending companies. After the scheme fell apart, the woman, who has a criminal history that includes attempts at passing bad checks, tried to make it look like the person responsible was an identity thief from Nigeria. And I'm pretty sure I talked about this, because when the story broke this happened, Everyone pointed their fingers at this woman, and then out of the blue, somebody emailed some prominent journalist and said, I am the person who did it. I am a Nigerian identity thief, and you wouldn't believe how easy it is to do it. And that story got some traction because people are thinking, why would somebody admit to doing this? Well, on the internet, where you can get a new email address in about 3 seconds, you can send emails claiming all kinds of stuff. So an email sent May 25th of 2024 to the Associated Press from the same email as the earlier statement said in Spanish that the foreclosure sale attempt was made by a Nigerian fraud ring that targets old and dead people in the U.S. and uses the internet to steal money. So a defense attorney noted that Presley's estate did not suffer any actual loss and countered the prosecution's stance that the scheme was executed in a sophisticated manner, adding that the plot was a concocted idea that had no real possibility of success. But of course, it embarrassed the Presley family. And number two, it cost them time and money going to court to defend this. And one thing you got to remember here is they didn't have a lot of time to respond. They had to rush to court to stop a proposed sale of their property. And when you ask attorneys to do stuff under the gun in an emergency, it gets expensive. So the judge said it would have been a travesty of justice if the sale had been completed, and also questioned how the woman thought the sale could be accomplished. But he said this was a highly sophisticated scheme to defraud. And, obviously the story would have run into snag somewhere, right? Somewhere. But we've talked so much about people stealing property by filing fake documents. This is another example of that. And the fact of the matter is that somebody thought, gee, the owner of that property just died. What if they'd borrowed a bunch of money and we had documents to prove it? Because documents aren't hard to come by. And we could foreclose on the property. Or maybe the family will kick us a couple $1 million to go away. Who knows? And so we don't know for a fact that the woman was hoping it would sell at auction. She might have just thought the family would toss her $1 million or $2 to make her go away. But the point of the matter is that she got pretty far in it, and it drew so much attention to the story that it was embarrassing. Because I remember when I first heard the story, what happened was those auction notices appeared in the paper. And somebody said, whoa, Graceland's going up for auction. The first reaction was not, hey, look, it's a scam. Some idiot's trying to steal this property through fake documents. No, the original story was Graceland's being foreclosed upon. Look, there's a notice of an auction right there. Graceland's being foreclosed upon. It's in the papers. Paper doesn't lie. And by the way, it probably was in actual physical papers because most places still have some papers that issue legal notices because many outdated laws require them to be published in the newspapers. And so there will be a place for things like that for quite some time probably. And so there are places that publish those, but also they get published online. And so a foreclosure notice got published, people saw it, and the original stories were Graceland being foreclosed upon. And when I first heard the story, my first inkling was, wow, when I was there, that place was packed. Maybe business is down. Maybe there's overspending. Maybe the family's not running their business properly. And then when it came out that, oh, it's probably a scam, I thought, oh, that makes more sense. But again, the original story was foreclosure on Graceland. So she's got more than 4 years in prison. She's got a couple of years of probation to follow that. And this is the end of the story, so I'm glad it ended well. So I got to thank R, G, Kevin and Scott for sending that from the Associated Press, and Adrian Sands wrote it. Missouri woman gets more than 4 years in prison for trying to sell off Elvis Presley's Graceland. And by the way, I got the whole tour of Graceland, and there's a lot of cool stuff there. But apparently out back, there's a shed with a stump in it. And the person giving us the tour said, yeah, occasionally when Elvis and or his friends were out hanging around and wanted to blow off some steam, they'd come out here and just shoot that stump. And the stump was all shot up. I mean, don't know what the stump did to deserve that, but thought, wow. It's amazing the entertainment you can find, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning out back. But that's the story. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time.